On episode 239 of the Peak Performance Leadership Podcast, we speak to author Dane Espegard, and he's going to tell you why goals don't matter. Dreams is where it's at. It's all about dreams today, folks. Are you ready for this? All right, let's do it. Welcome one, welcome all to the Peak Performance Leadership Podcast, a weekly podcast series dedicated to helping you hit peak performance across the three domains of leadership. Those being leading yourself, leading your team, and leading your organization. This podcast couples my 20 years of military experience as a senior Canadian Army officer with world-class guests to bring you the most complete podcast of leadership going. And for more, feel free to check out our website at movingforwardleadership.com. And with that, let's get to the show. Yes, welcome one, welcome all to the Peak Performance Leadership Podcast. It is your Chief Leadership Officer, Scott McCarthy. And it's so good to have you here today, talking about a topic that you don't hear much about. And in fact, I would offer that it's probably the first time you'll ever hear of this topic. And that is dreams. And no, I'm not talking about what you see at night when you go to sleep. However, super quick sidebar comment, I actually don't have those dreams. Well, don't get me wrong. Yes, we all dream. However, I'm one of those people that I close my eyes, I fall asleep, and then I wake up in the morning. I almost never remember my dreams. But that's not what we're talking about today. But rather, what are those large, goals that you just want to do that seems so far out there? That's what we're talking about today. And I'll tell you one of mine right here, right now. I am a avid hockey fan. Yes, I know, #shocker, right? You got a Canadian and he is an avid hockey fan. I know, you weren't expecting that. Now, one of my dreams is to watch my team, the Canadiens de Montréal, the Montreal Canadiens, play in every rink in the league. 32 rinks, that's 32 games in 32 cities. Now, I have a few of those already scratched off, but it's only a handful. So I just think it would be a super cool thing to do. And that's one of my, dreams in life. And that's what we're talking about today with Dane. And we kind of talk about, where this whole idea about tapping into dreams came about. We talk about his ideology about growth mindset and how important that is. And then he actually morphs into what a dream mindset is. We talk about how dreams is about the journey and not the destination, how to enable our team members to make dreams, and how to reward them by knowing their dreams. And for leaders out there, this is where the goods will be, right? If you're looking at a way to get away from the certificates of appreciation, the little presentation, the gift card, all these just, basically garbage thank yous, but looking to really reward your team members, this is where the money's at. And then finally, we get into dreamstorming and how we can get our teams to do that. So Dane is an author. He's a consultant who teaches, assists, and execute the implementation of a culture centered around dream achieving. You see, his company is all about getting people to, one, realize, and then two, get on a path about realizing those dreams. And this is something that he has actually done at his former corporate job, and now he's public speaking and training individuals in this realm for 15 years. So this has been super interesting, super, I would say, pertinent topic that we just don't talk enough about. And why? Because a lot of people out there think it's food bars or it's not professional to get in and talk about your subordinate's dreams. Well, Dane and I are here today to tell you that's totally wrong. So without further ado, why don't you sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with Dane Espegard all about the Dream Machine. Dane, sir, welcome to the show. So good to have you.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So we're talking today all about dreams. And of course, not the dream. Well, you never know. It could be tied to the dreams we have when we sleep. But more importantly, those big, ambitious, really big, ambitious goals that people have and their importance to motivating them in our teams, which I found really interesting. And I tell you, there were some interesting tidbits in your book that I'm sure we're going to dive into as we get through. But I got to know, where did this idea about tapping into people's dreams in the first place came about?
Yeah, I think for me, part of it was my upbringing. I feel like with my mom specifically, there's a lot of conversation in the house growing up of, anything is possible and just kind of engaging on that topic. Then we reached that kind of middle phase or older childhood phase where I feel like parents regularly, it's kind of like go to college, choose that choose that major that's going to get you a secure job. And we kind of lose focus on what are the things that light you up. So I went to work for a company right out of high school that I'm still with today, 20 years later. And it's a direct sales company. They sell Cutco knives. And that company is super focused on personal growth. So that really helped that I was exposed to, the industry of personal growth as an 18 to 22-year-old. And then kind of the pinnacle moment, I would say, was a year after college. I had been, after I graduated from the University of Wisconsin, I was running my own kind of franchise or location, if you will, with Cutco. And they have a national event for managers. So I went to Orlando, and the keynote speaker was this guy named Matthew Kelly. And Matthew Kelly wrote a book on dreams. And he had us make a dreams list right at the event. And so that was kind of my first introduction to the concept of, as an adult, hey, what are the things that would light you up? And so I got a lot of energy from that, but it kind of dwindled after about a month of going home. And, kind of like a lot of things that you hear at a conference, at a work conference. And, but I had it on my desktop and it was there. And then fast forward, that was 2007. Fast forward 5 years later, I had moved twice for work and I was starting a team from scratch. So it's kind of getting back to the basics of, what if I were to start a team that I was going to be involved in for the next decade or two, what would I want that culture to feel like? And I went back to the dreams concept. And so it was really inspired by Matthew Kelly in his great work.
It's definitely something you don't hear often about. And even talking about people's personal goals and stuff isn't necessarily something that gets discussed a lot around the workplace, which I think is a shame, to be honest, because it kind of flattens people, right? You don't see the whole depth of the person and who they actually are and what their interests are and what their passions are. God, it took me forever to even talk about this podcast at work. Right? And people are just you have a podcast? And now, in another 6 weeks or so, I got an article about me on about this show going out to my entire branch of the army, of the military. So we're talking about something like 60,000 people are going to learn that.
Awesome.
Scott McCarthy's got a leadership podcast going, which is pretty cool. But, it's, if that wouldn't have happened, if I didn't, have this goal and I have a dream of, starting my own thing, and how do I go about it? And then, talking about it at work, and people are like, wow, you should talk more about it. And then all of a sudden that happens. So, you embrace that mindset, and you talk a bit about it in your book too. You talk about embracing the growth mindset, and you also embracing the dreams mindset. So I kind of would like to hit those two right next of, growth mindset. What is that from your standpoint? And then how does that flow into that whole dream mindset that we have going on?
Yeah. I think the growth mindset is more typical today than it used to be. And I think, as Scott, when you're talking about
100%, absolutely.
And a lot of it, I think, is just the personal growth industry in general is more mainstream. And part of that is podcasts. Like, I think about when I was a student, you had to go to a bookstore, get a book, and you had to read about it. And, that's a lot of steps for somebody who isn't necessarily familiar with that industry. And now anybody can pop on a podcast from any single person on motivation, on personal growth, on changing habits. And so I think that it's way more mainstream now. But there's still so many businesses and organizations that are structured in called old school management style, which is very, hey, here's your work life, there's the personal life, but we don't blend the two. And I think even 5, 6, 7 years ago, the blend was happening, right? Where I would even say 20 years ago when it was normal to have that style, it still was not necessarily the right style in terms of, hey, look, if I'm alive at work and things are great, I'm probably going to bring that home. If I'm having a fight, an argument, something really difficult at home, challenge with the kids, I'm probably going to bring that to work, right? So in other words, we have one life, and that's what Matthew Kelly talked about. We have one life. We don't have two. And he wrote another great book that's called Rhythm of Life, in terms of, the misconception of balance, and balance not being equal time here, but kind of the seasons of life and embracing that. And I really liked that. And so when I had started my new team from scratch in 2013, I just thought about, what's going to tap into the person, but also for me, what would be exciting for me to be a part of my own team. And so it was really kind of, I don't want to say a selfish thing, because it's obviously focused on other people, but it was also if I'm going to be here for the next 10, 20 years of my adult life, like what would be something that would light me up? So the growth concept, is obviously I sum that up by the statement of, like, we're all a work in progress. And the idea of who we are right now, great, not great, whatever the situation is a result of what we've been working on for the last year, 2 years, 3 years, all the way through our entire life. So who we want to be tomorrow is about what we're doing today. And what I love about the growth mindset is it allows us to look at things like problems, mistakes, failures as stepping stones and opportunities, silver linings, right? You hear these things a lot in different books, audios, whatever. But I love the idea of, who I am today is a fraction of who I'm becoming, but I'm on a journey. The dreams concept, the idea, like, what's the difference between growth and dreams? The dreams concept, I think, really gives people a whole bunch of mini destinations. And we all, in my experience, work better when we have a target of what we're working on. In the book, I talk about the idea of when we get engaged and we have a wedding date set. And I use this example a lot, but I don't know about you or any of the listeners, but for me, we had a wedding date set, and it was like all of a sudden it was way easier for me to stick to my fitness and health goals because I could clearly envision what my wedding day was going to look like. The photos are going to live on forever. I've been thinking about that day. And so, it could be something as simple as, Scott, you have a family vacation coming up in a month. The enjoyment isn't just the family vacation. It's the planning. It's the anticipation. It's the decisions ahead of time. So we get more than just the 1 week vacation as enjoyment. We get everything before and sometimes after as well. So the dreams concept is meant to say, hey, Scott, what are the 100, 200, 300 things that at some point in your life would kind of light you up, give you some extra enjoyment, give you a little extra oomph to wake up in the morning? And if you had those speckled in your schedule every 2 months, 6 months, however long, would it be easier for you to wake up with purpose and excitement than it is just kind of going day to day, year to year? That to me is really kind of sums up what the dreams mindset would be.
I love the journey analogy, because I talked about, and I did a podcast episode actually on this topic, that leadership in itself is a journey. We're never finished products, right? Especially as leaders, there's always something new that we can learn. There's always something we can tweak. There's always something we can sharpen and hone and stuff like this. Whereas I find a lot of, I'm not gonna bash anyone, so I'm not gonna say any names or anything like this. Not getting specifics, but a lot of the coaches and consultants out there, they have an end state. They're like, here's the end goal. I'm like, nah, this is a journey. This isn't stop. You don't suddenly stop leading your team. Yes, you do it the day you retire or you leave, but you still are a leader. You still have family that you lead.
Yeah.
You still have friends that you can lead. You still have your the clubs that you're part of. And we talk about 3 domains here. And the first domain is leading yourself. So you should never stop leading yourself, because then all suddenly you're going to wither and go away. And then the final domain is, or second domain is leading your team. And then the final domain is leading your organization. So you can see how that rolls in. So what really actually set me off was I saw someone say, I'll make you the best leader possible in 30 days or less. And I was just like, no, right? That's not like how it works.
That's like 6-minute abs or something like that, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. That was exactly it. 6-minute abs. But like, no, this is where, you got to have this goal. You have this vision, go down the line. So I really appreciate the journey aspect, right? And the wedding one was a great one, because not only that, you can see that all the other parts of how it fits in. I guess probably that's the biggest, the greatest thing here about this whole dreams concept is it's not just one dimensional.
Yeah. And Scott, on that too, so many people think when I talk about dreams that it's all about like living in the future, and it's actually the exact opposite of that. The quote that we talk about a lot in the book, that I talk about quite a bit, is when there's hope in the future, there's power in the present. So really all of this is about the present. So it's not about, goal setting. I think I've been for 15 years, I've been working with people on setting goals and achieving those goals. And people get so lost in, did I hit it or did I not hit it? And that's not the objective. The objective is, who am I becoming in the process? And so when we talk about dreams, the idea of us accomplishing our dreams is giving us things to stretch for that require us to be bigger and better today than we were yesterday. So I'm in pursuit. And I think that's the thing that people miss, that the whole concept of dreams in an organization or me personally is, look, if I got big things I'm focused on, I know that who I am today has accomplished what I have today. But if I want for more tomorrow, and that doesn't have to be possessions or, finances or anything, but I want higher quality of life, greater quality relationships, these things, I need to become a better individual of me. And so it is about the today in terms of what am I doing, but it's hard to get the fire today if I don't have the vision for tomorrow. That's really what it's about.
Yeah, I love that. I love that bit, especially as you talked about, it's not necessarily about, hitting, did I drop 5 pounds or did I bench 205? Did I do this? Like, no, okay. What did I learn along the way, so that next time I go for that, I'm likely to surpass it. For example,
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a personal example. I have a home gym in my basement, and on the board there, I have all the major lifts that I do, and I have my goal and where I'm currently at, tracking and stuff like this. So last week I went to PR. I was going to go for a PR on my bench press, 205. So my goal was 195. And then I'm looking for a personal best at personal workout at 205. I don't know if that's impressive or not. I have absolutely no idea, but hey, it's good enough for me. Did make it. Right. Did make it. Well, yep. Then, it's like, all right, the goal is still there. I guess, tomorrow's workout is going to be, by the way. But, it's like, okay, what do I learn? I went too hard at my initial reps, my warm-up reps. I went too heavy on those. I fatigued myself. I wasn't actually properly motivated. The wrong music was there. I wasn't properly, didn't do my breathing technique properly before I start. I went through this whole checklist, but, so I like visualizing, okay, next week when it's that workout again, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to drop my ego at the first rep, group of reps. I'm going to properly motivate myself and stuff like this. And, we'll see. We'll see what happens tomorrow morning. But,
I love it.
That's what it's about. It's not, and that is the here and now.
Yep. I totally
So
agree. And it's about, for me, one of the reasons, like in the book, we talk about the different categories that we take people through the, like when we do the workshop, and there's 9 categories. And so the idea is like, look, when we're in different seasons of life, I could be taking somebody through the workshop that is a single guy, right? And I go through the family section or the, legacy or chair, and they might not kind of hit on that as much, but maybe they're feeling the health stuff and the adventure and the travel. And then there's, that exact same person 5-10 years later, when we go through this, man, they fill up the family section, the relationships. And so we're all in different seasons of life, and that's a normal thing. And so I get asked this question all the time where it's like, well, my situation is a little different. So what would you do here? I'm like, your situation's not different. Like there's not a normal. And so, the situation that you're in is exactly where you should be right now in your life. And it's going to be different than where you were 2 years ago. And it's probably going to be different than where you will be 2 years from now. And so but the whole premise of the book is like, can we give ourselves time? And if you run if you're in charge of a team or team leader or organization, can I get my team members time to focus on just them? And I think that's the important thing is giving ourselves the time and the space to really focus on us. And that's, I don't know all your personal situation, Scott, but it's like the more hats that we start to wear, the more difficult it is for us to give ourselves time, right? Before we started recording,
100%.
my kids came in. It's like I'm wearing the dad hat, I'm wearing the husband hat, I'm wearing the entrepreneur hat, and so it takes a lot to be able to strip those things away and just say, hey, I'm going to give myself the hour, 2 hours, 3 hours just to focus on me for a little bit, and how healthy that is.
No, that's awesome. I love the habits analogy, and yeah, you're right. Giving yourselves the time, and you hit a bit a great dovetail actually, because I'd like to gear this, towards the other domains, because we talked a lot about our own dreams and going after them and a bit about it, but like you hinted at it, and I'd like to dive more into the team aspect of, giving our teammates, our team members space. How can we go about enabling them to think about, some people haven't even thought about dreams. And I'll give you a great example. This past spring, I should say, I did a seminar with a group of people, and I said, at the end, I said, all right, let's do a simple exercise: start, stop, keep. And you probably know this exercise as a coach, right?
Love it.
What are you going to start doing? What are you going to stop doing? And what are you going to, what are you going to keep doing? And I was blown away by the number of people who said set personal goals for start and not keep. It was astounding. It was absolutely astounding. I'm like, holy cow. I didn't say it. I didn't let it go or anything, but I was shocked. Right. And so that to me tells me that there's, a bit of an issue out there of leaders and businesses and organizations not giving people space to think about what, goals are, what are their personal goals, how that might help them in the workplace and stuff like this. So from your context, and especially the dreams aspect of it, how can we as leaders enable our team members to start, dreaming, basically?
Yeah. So I think, Scott, the answer is actually what we were talking about, which is the first domain. So one of the things I think that all leadership, I think that the premise is like, live it out loud, right? So if I want my team to do something, I got to do it myself. If I want my team to have healthy habits, I got to model healthy habits. It's like your kids, right? So in other words, if I want my kids to feel a certain way or do a certain thing or create a certain habit, I've got to model that stuff. It's not what I say, but it's what I do that they're going to get. And so once I made the shift in my organization to not just do these things internally, but to do them out loud for my team, that was one of the biggest shifts that we had. And because what I was doing is I didn't recognize it necessarily at first, but number one, I was being super vulnerable and authentic with my team. And what I mean by that is I was publicly going through and saying to my squad, hey, these are my dreams and here's what I just accomplished. That's a real snapshot into who I am as a person. And so for me to start that conversation and say, hey, I want this workplace to be a place that's not just about us hitting a sales number or whatever else, but it should be a place that you, the employee, the worker, is the most important person. I would love to say our customer is the most important person, but realistically, it's you. If you don't feel taken care of, it's impossible to make the customer feel taken care of. And so I think the greatest work an organization can do is to really fulfill and lift up the people that are on the team. So I do that on my team by living my dreams out loud in front of my squad. And when I do that, it enables them to be able to do the same thing, to reach, to stretch, to say, to be vulnerable and put it out there in front of the other people to say, I really want to do this thing. I just don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. And so I think that, again, that the leader doing it first is most important. And then also having the conversation around dreams and somehow, and again, I talk about this in the book, but facilitating the creation of what would excite you, what would fire you up. Because I work for a direct sales company that sells cutlery, right? Think about that. Nobody actually says, you know what I want to do when I'm older? I want to sell knives. That sounds like, right? Like I didn't say that. So how am I able to retain my people? It's because for them, it's not selling knives. It's them pursuing the life of their dreams, but they have to have a vehicle to enable that. And what I've been able to do is kind of show that the job isn't about this and selling knives. It's a vehicle for you to be able to accomplish these things personally, to take this vacation, to save this money, to invest in these things, or, do whatever is going to light you up. And I think that's really the unique space where when we tap into that, it shows that we value the person and not the job.
Love it. Especially the whole, we got to live it, right? Lead by example. But I think it's even, in this case, it's even more so, more than just leading by example, but rather it's normalizing the idea. It's okay to talk about your dreams because look, I'm the team leader and I'm talking about mine. And I do that at my work all the time. What are my goals for the podcast? What are my goals later in my career? What are my goals and my dreams, throughout? I talk about that with my team and enables, them to open up. For example, I have one of my guys, he's like, oh, I want to apply to this position. I said, well, let's talk about it. And my initial gut feel was not the right time, not the right fit. He wanted to go overseas and live overseas and stuff like this. So I kind of, I said, all right, that's your goal. That's your dream and that's your wife's dream. That's awesome. And, applaud you. I'm actually a bit jealous because unfortunately just personal circumstances, that's not going to work out for me, but it's okay. But let's see how we can make it work for you. And actually walked him through the process and stuff like this. He's like, you guys sit the wife down and explain this to her. He's like, I get it. He's like, I understand now why it's best for me to let this one go. It's kind of let the small fish go for the bigger fish later, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, if we didn't have that normalized culture, he wouldn't have brought it up to me. He might have applied for that. And now it's like, God, it's not the right time, man. Not the right time. So,
yeah.
Now, in the book, there was an awesome example. I believe I even mentioned this at work one day, and I kind of want to lead you about it because you don't know what example I'm talking about in my head. But it was the example of the football game. The football game tickets. You know the one I'm talking about?
Yes. So. Yeah, with Ramsey. Yes.
All right. So, I would love for you to explain how, when we have this culture of dreams, how we can actually, instead of doing the stereotypical pats on the backs or certificates and stuff like this, how we can actually reward our folks for outstanding work. And that example was fantastic.
Yeah. I think that the busier we are, the more people on our team, the more that we kind of buy the lie that it's difficult to, I just don't have time. And to show genuine appreciation, it does take time. It doesn't need to be a lot of time, but it needs some time to think it through. So the example I think that you're talking about is with Ramsey Sorrells. Ramsey was in a role for a while that's called the pilot sales manager position. It's the most overworked, underappreciated position that we have in our business. Okay, and it's kind of like an apprenticeship role essentially. So, and it's meant to set them up for long-term success. So this guy, he was busting his butt for over a year. He chose let's see, I think he went to maybe 2 years of college, and then he was like, nah, I'm gonna pursue things with this company, with the company I work with. And so, I mean, he he had sweat equity built into our business big time. So when it was getting to the time for him to kind of leave that position and move on, because it's usually a 1 year role, I was looking for, how can I show this guy a ton of appreciation? And I get to know, like, that person is the one I work closest with, so I get to know them quite a bit. I also have all my team members' dreams lists. So it's kind of a cheat code, because I can literally look at it and be like, what's a gift or appreciation that's going to land, right? So for him, it was kind of a few different things, but he'd never really been to New York City. His brother lived there. His brother and him, big age gap, didn't really get time together growing up. There's more to that than just that statement. But we're from Minnesota originally, so he's a Vikings fan. And let's see, what was the last thing with it too? And then he hadn't flown first class. And I don't think he'd been to a Vikings game. So there's like multiple things I was hitting on. We had a work event that was in West State, New York, in near Buffalo, which is where our company's headquartered. And so I basically just surprised him and said, hey man, next week when we go to New York, we're going to deviate from the trip. Instead of coming home, we're going to go to New York City, give you an opportunity to see your brother. I got 4 tickets to I think it was Giants Vikings game, or Jets Vikings. And, I want to take your brother. I've got a buddy in town, so us 4 will go, and we're going to fly first class, and then we'll be there for 24 hours and head home. So it wasn't like, for me, it was like, you think about the money that was spent on it, and I don't remember what the total was, but overall the flights cost a little bit, the tickets cost a little bit, the hotel cost a little bit. But I mean, that is a life memory. I think I crossed off 3 dreams on that guy's list in that weekend. He talked about that to everybody, and he no longer is on our team. He's a real estate agent. He's crushing life right now, and our relationship is phenomenal. And it's not because of that, but I know that showed him that I valued him as an individual and not just what he produced for work. And I think that's what we're always after. The guy that just finished that role, I didn't even talk about this in the book. He had a bunch of things on his list. I was looking at him like, I think I can take this guy to Vegas. He's a young guy, never been to Vegas. So he never really gambled, never shot. There were guns he wanted to shoot. So it was like, we went to Vegas. I flew him there. We stayed at the Wynn. We gambled together. And then we went to one of those like places that you can shoot, I don't know, like machine guns and stuff in Vegas. And so it was like a dream day for him. Same deal, 24 hours. And he still talks about that now. That was in February, where he's like, oh, that was such a great day. So it's just, can I be an experience maker? Because people don't remember gifts that you give them. That's a material thing, but they remember experiences that they have with you. And that's really what I'm after is, can I get shared experiences with my team members so that I can share with them, not just that time, but also share with them how I feel about them during that process.
Yeah, that's the story right there. It was such a good example. And, it's just like, who cares about another certificate or, stupid trophy or,
right.
Even maybe a watch or whatever.
A gift certificate, right?
Yeah, a gift certificate or whatever, right? It's like, no, you got an idea there of what they're interested in and what they would love to do. And, take the guy with his brother to a football game. Like, that's something he's going to talk about for the rest of his life. Hands down. And maybe the next guy too, right? The Vegas and stuff like this. Mm-hmm. So it's awesome. And I think as leaders out there, it's like, it doesn't necessarily have to be as extravagant as, first class and,
right.
and, a big football game or whatever, right? It could be something simple. For one of my guys, he recently got married. Him and his wife already had 2 kids and stuff like this. So kind of, and then I've kind of put him through the ringer with work a bit and so on and so forth. I can't get into details, unfortunately, but anyway, moral of the story is this. When he got married, I wasn't at his wedding because they had a small wedding, and not that I'd be looking to get invited anyway. But after his wedding, I left a card on his desk, but it was addressed to his wife. And so there he had 2 small kids and stuff like this. So brings it home, he hands it to his wife. She opens it up. In there is a gift certificate, gift card for the keg for a meal for both of them. I said, hey, and wrote a note and stuff like this, and said, tasked Jordan, her, my guy, her husband, said, find a babysitter, and if you can't, here's my phone number. They found a babysitter, but it was more along the lines of, just get away as a couple for a little bit, because you got 2 young kids, and here's an excuse for you to get away as a couple for a few hours. 2 young kids, nice meal together, and if you can't find someone to take care of your 2 kids, give me a call, and I'll step in. Not a big deal. And it was just something small, but at the same time, I got a message from him while they're out, and he talked about it to me after. He's like, it was great, it was fantastic. We haven't been able to do that for quite some time, but he's like, but to be truthfully honest, he's like, I haven't been forced to do something like that for a while either. Like, well, there was your forcing function, right? So
yeah,
we can just do the small things. So, oh man, this has been a great conversation. Wrapping up, I do want to hit one last thing before we wrap up, and that is you talk about the dream storming process. So I'd like for you to kind of go through, like we've talked a lot about having dreams as individuals. We talked about our team members and stuff like this, but for some people out there, it's just like, I don't even know where to start. So let's help out that person. The person who doesn't know where to start, doesn't know how to guide their team through this process. How does that process look like? What are the steps involved? And then we can set them up for success that way.
So, great question. I have 3 answers to the same question. One is, if somebody wants to reach out to me on social media, I can send them a list of prompts. The gold is in that. So when I run a workshop, I'll probably in the 2 to 3 hours, I will throw out prompts, which are, thought jogging suggestions for probably over 1,000 dreams as we go through it. So it's nonstop. And what's great with that is it gets your juices flowing, where you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I didn't think about that. And, just like any brainstorming process, once you start, it's easier to continue. So that's one thing. If somebody wants to reach out to me on social media, I can send them this master list. There's about 1,000 plus dreams, maybe 1,400, I think, that are on there. That's one. Number 2, the only answer I've really had since I launched the book last year has been, hire me for your business and I'll do one. But the book was written in a way, like I wanted it to be anybody who reads it could go and do a dreams workshop for their team. And that's why I give away that resource for free, that kind of prompt list. The third answer is a to be determined. And what I mean by that is this fall, I don't know when exactly this is going to get released, but in the next month or so, I'm recording a full dream storming process that I'm then going to list on my website, and people can just snag that. And it'll literally have the prompt, me doing all of the prompts and leading them through it. Somebody could use that for their team. They could just use it. I've had a lot of people that have asked for, hey, can we do this with our family? And so that's a resource I'm putting together that should be out in the next couple months. So depending on what comes out, that may be available already. If not, by the end of the year, 100% it'll be ready.
Yeah, this will definitely be out before that. So for you listeners, easy. Just head to his website, and the website's going to be in the show notes anyway. Or go grab a copy of the book, and that will definitely help you along through the process too, right? But, it is all about kind of get the juices flowing, kind of like brainstorm, like you said. So yeah. I'm sure people can definitely, check out your stuff on social media or get your book, and they'll definitely get moving. Dane, my friend, this has been a fantastic conversation. I truly appreciate it. Got a couple last questions before we hit wrap up here. The first being a question I asked all the guests here at the Peak Performance Leadership Podcast, and that's according to you, Dane Espegard. What makes a great leader?
What makes a great leader? I feel like there's not a wrong answer. Well, there's probably some wrong answers. The thing that comes to mind first for me is leading with vision. I think leaders where there's a lot of responsibilities that we have, but I think one of the most important ones is helping with vision. And I think the normal response to vision is, hey, what's the vision for this organization? And I think that's a must. Any team that you're on, there's got to be a vision of what we're working towards. But I think the next evolution of that is really what we're talking about in the book, which is like, what is the individual on the team? What is the team member's vision for them? And if their role here can assist in their vision, man, that's the sweet spot. I think that's where that overlap and we really hit that high performance.
Love it. Absolutely. You got to have vision for sure. And then finally, where can people find you, follow you? Shameless plug. It's all about you now, man.
My Instagram is probably the thing I'm most active on. I do a lot of dream spotlighting and stuff on there as well, but it's just Dane Espegard. I'm the only Dane Espegard out there. So you can find me on Instagram or LinkedIn. And then my website, which is daneespegard.com. If somebody wants to snag a free copy of the book, that also puts you on the email list, which I don't send a ton of stuff out, but when I, come out with the new recording and that kind of stuff, that'll be out there. But it's just daneespegard.com /free gift, and they can get a free downloadable copy of the book. And that's a way for them to, get up to date with the dreams.
Awesome. And for you listeners, always, it's easy. Just go to leaddon'tboss.com /239. The links are there in show notes. Dane, again, my friend, thanks for coming out. It's been a pleasure and honor, sir.
Yeah, it's been great. Thanks for having me, Scott.
And that's a wrap for this episode, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting the Peak Performance Leadership Podcast. But you know what you could do to truly support the podcast? And no, that's not leaving a rating and review. It's simply helping a friend. And that is helping a friend by sharing this episode with them if you think this would resonate with them and help them elevate their performance level, whether that's within themselves, their teams, or their organization. So do that. Help me, help a friend, win-win all around. And hey, you look like a great friend at the same time. So just hit that little share button on your app, and then feel free to fire this episode to anyone that you feel would benefit from it. Finally, there's always more. There's always more lessons around being the highest performing leader that you can possibly be, whether that's for yourself, your team, or your organization. So why don't you subscribe? Subscribe to the show via movingforwardleadership.com /subscribe. And until next time, lead, don't boss, and thanks for coming out. Take care now.